Hi, I'm Jill from Homeschool for Real Life, and I want to tell you about my very favorite math game, Outnumbered. This game is awesome, and I love to include games when I'm teaching my kids, and this one is my absolute favorite for math. So here are the reasons that I love this game. Number one, you're actually really using math. Some of the math games, like kinda, but at the same time, it's a real game. I mean, it's got these characters, comic type characters, and you're trying to save the infinity generator from the villains. So there's actually like a premise to the game that makes it really like you're playing a game. So it's not just math and it's not just a game. They do an awesome job. It's from Genius Games. They do an awesome job of combining those two and making it a fun game to play. Another reason I love this game is it's cooperative. So everybody wins together, everybody loses together. And the reason that I really love cooperative games is that you can kind of cheat a little bit, and it doesn't matter because when you make those little tweaks and adjustments to the rules, or you kind of, switch the order of what's in the deck to make things go better, it's benefiting everybody. So there's no reason that you can't do that unless you have a rule stickler and, they're unwilling to do that, which sometimes is the case. My daughter gives me looks sometimes, but it's cooperative, so nobody loses. We're all working together. Another thing that I love about this game is how much math is in it. On every single turn, you can use all of the operations. You can add, subtract, multiply, and divide, and even use some exponents. And players, since it's cooperative, you can work together. They can give you ideas and hints. So it really engages you in a fun way and a mathematical way. And one more thing I really like about the way they designed this game is that there are 3 different ways to play. So if you have little ones, there's a way to make it really basic so that they can just practice playing the game and doing the math at their own pace and get better and better at it. But then there's a more engaging game that they can play when they're ready. And then finally, you can add in some of the more complicated elements to up the level of difficulty and make it even more fun. So, what do I not like about this game? Not much. I really, really like this game, but there are a couple of things I could say here. So one is you can't play the 3 different levels of play all at once. So it's not like you can have somebody who's a whiz at math and a young kid playing at the same time at their level, right? So they could play together and they'd be contributing in their own ways, but you can't play the 3 different levels all at once. My only other complaint about the game really is it's actually kind of hard to win. So that's why we've made some of those little tweaks to the game in order to give ourselves a little advantage, because it's really hard to win. Sometimes we don't win. That's not really been devastating for my kids and I. It's just kind of like, oh man, not again. But it's not been a big deal. But if that would be frustrating for your kids, you can absolutely take out some of the more difficult cards or maybe make some of those little adjustments as you're going along so you have what might be a more acceptable outcome to everyone. So let's get the game set up and take a closer look at it. Okay, so here is the game board. Isn't it awesome? It is so cool. On the other side of it, you've got a poster of these really fun characters that go with the game. But this is the game board that you're going to be playing on. So right now it's actually set up for the highest level of game, but the regular level and the highest level really are set up pretty much the same. So I'll tell you about those differences in just a minute. So basically, you have these villains. You've got a whole stack of villain cards, and every villain has a number on it. And that number is what you need to get in order to defeat that villain. So you're trying to take out these villains that are in the top row here. So they always start in the top row, and then as the game moves on, they get moved down and removed if you defeat them. So your goal is to keep defeating and removing villains, but they always start in this top row. Right here is your little infinity generator truck. So this is what you are trying to protect. It's going to be moving down this track over here, and you're trying to get it down there to the atomic slab for safety. But Absolute Zero, who's right here, he's trying to get it first. So if any one of these villains moves all the way down, takes out the barricade, and gets down here, they have stolen the infinity generator truck. So that's what you really don't want to happen. So that's kind of the premise of the game. Absolute Zero and his guys are trying to get it. You are trying to defeat them and keep them away. Okay? So these 3 red dice are how we take our turn. You're going to be rolling the 3 dice on each turn and then finding ways to use the numbers rolled to take out the villains that you have over here. So I can do that by multiplying, adding, subtracting, dividing, or even squaring. And it's not in the rules, but when we play, we go ahead and allow you to cube. Because when you play the basic game, you're going to use just these blue cards, which have more basic numbers. They're easier to make. But when you add in the purple cards for the next level, including Absolute Zero, they get a lot more difficult to take out. Okay, so if I roll the 3 dice, I have a 6, a 1, and a 2. So I could add the 6 and the 1, and I could use those to take out the 7. Then I can't use those dice anymore. They're only used once per turn. And I'm left with a 2, so what I could do is square it, and I could take out the 4. So these 2 cards would be gone, and my turn would be over. Alright, so extra things that go along with that. Each player, at the beginning of the game, chooses a hero card. So you could do that randomly, or we actually like to choose ours. So each hero has their own superpower. So whichever one of these you choose, you're able to use it once on your turn. So if you have the purple multiple, you can double a value. So I could have doubled this to 4 and squared that to 16 if I needed to. Subtract 1 or 2 from a value. So I could have subtracted 1 to make this 5, squared that, gotten 25 if I needed to, right? You can flip a die to its opposite side. Change that 6 to another 1. Or change the 2 to a 5. So all these different superpowers, you get one, and that's your superpower for the whole game. So each player has one extra superpower. As the villains move down, so they're going to advance on certain turns. What happens is, when it's your turn, after you take your turn, you drive the infinity generator 1 space. If you land on one of these explosion spaces, that's a villain attack. So that means that all your villains move down a space. You add 5 new villains at the top. And if you are playing the advanced level game, you're also then going to draw an event card. And these events mean something bad usually happens. Advance all villains with odd numbers in the top row. So anybody with an odd number gets advanced. And since this one's here, this one's going to push it along. So all villains with odd numbers in the top row advance. Okay. Let's see, what else? Do nothing. That's the best one. We're very happy when that one comes up. Advance all villains with even numbers in the top row. They're everywhere. Deal 1 villain on each empty red space. So any red spaces that I don't have covered, here's another one, I'd have to put a villain onto. So those events make things a little more complicated when you're playing the advanced level game. So those are the main differences between the advanced level game and the regular. You've got the purple villains in there, including Absolute Zero, and You draw the events when you land on these instead of just advancing your villains and drawing more. All right, if you are playing the simple game for younger kids, you're only going to use the villain cards that go up to 10, so many fewer villain cards. You're going to remove these barricades, and so as they move down, the game doesn't end. So if somebody makes it to here, the game doesn't end. You just count how many villains make it through. We're counting on the other heroes, all those other heroes, to stop any villains that get through. So the idea is to let as few villains escape as possible, meaning they've made it through. So you're going to want to defeat them with your dice and remove them before they get down there. So you keep track of your scores for each game and see how good you can get. You're also only using these center 3 lanes for that. These outside 2 lanes are not going to be in play. Okay, so that's your simple game, middle game, and complicated game. The other thing that's different, in the simple game, you're going to ignore these yellow spaces. But in a regular game, an advanced game, if you take out a villain who's on one of these sparkly yellow spaces, you get a bonus power. So these are cards that are used once and then discarded. You can only use them on your turn, and you can use them on the turn you get them or another turn. You can save them for later. But they essentially will allow you to take out an extra villain. So this is play after any villain was defeated this turn to defeat another villain in the same row. So if I took this one out in order to get it, then I could take out this one or this one because it's in the same row. This one, same thing. Defeat a villain with an even number. So I could take out any one of these villains I want to that has an even number. So that's really fun because you hardly have to do any math and you don't have to use up your dice. You just get to take out an extra villain. So the goal is that players keep taking out these villains and not allowing them to get to these barricades. If they do move down, if he gets to the barricade, both he and the barricade are gone, but the next time a villain makes it all the way down there, he's going to get this infinity generator. So that's what we don't want to happen. So we keep moving. If you land on these blank spaces, nothing happens. But again, the explosion means there's a villain attack and you've got to do the advancing and the event if you're playing the advanced game. So here we get a break for 2 turns, we get to take our turns, then we do that again, right? So we come all the way down. Once we get to the atomic slab, we're in the final assault. So we no longer draw any new villain cards, and if you're playing the advanced game, you no longer draw any events. So at this point, you only have the existing villains advancing down the board each turn. They advance every time, and you are taking turns trying to take them all out before they can get through your barricades. So as long as the existing villains are gone before anybody makes it through, then you have won the game. And at the end, there's a way to score yourself based on how many barricades are left and whether or not you actually took out absolute 0 using dice. Absolute 0 cannot be defeated with bonus power cards, so that makes him a little harder to take out. And so you add up your points that you earned that game and see if you have beat other games. But really, we're just happy if we survive. So it's a really great game with great design, fun game elements, and a lot of math happening every turn. And it's really great because so much mathematical discussion happens. Because on every turn, you can be looking at these dice and looking at what's out here and offering suggestions. And so everybody's having mathematical discussions about how we could get the different numbers, and then you have to think about strategy, which would be the best strategy, which if we could take out maybe 2 different cards with these dice, but we can't do both, we have to pick one, which would be best. So it involves everybody in the game. You're all working together and tons of math is happening. So this is hands down my favorite math game. I'm so impressed with its design. Thank you for joining me for this review of my favorite math game, Outnumbered from Genius Games. I hope that you enjoyed it, that this looks interesting to you. I'd love to hear from you in the comments if you think you'd like to check it out, or if you've played it and you have anything to share, or even if you have any questions, let me know. And make sure that you like and subscribe so you can find out what I think of all of these other games too. Thanks!